This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
And welcome, Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, also by going to mobile devices and Alexa and searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Along with former Wausau West High School head football coach Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. Coming up, we will recap the Level 1 playoff action going on around Wisconsin last week. Take a look ahead to the Level 2 action as well coming up on Friday night. Plus, we'll have special guests coming up. We will be talking to the head football coach of Merrill High School, Jason Wadzinski, who had a big turnaround with the Merrill Blue Jays this season. Gave a great battle in Onalaska last week. We'll talk about that game and the season with Jason Wadzinski coming up at 6:25. And then our student-athlete guest will be Wausau East senior Jesse Napgezek. He had a big night as the Lumberjacks saw their season come to an end last week against Fox Valley Lutheran in a high-scoring affair, to say the least. So that's all coming up here in the next 2 hours on the Big High School Sports Show. And it's almost football weather finally.
Yeah, fall has arrived just in time for Halloween tomorrow night.
And unfortunately, a lot of teams not practicing anymore.
Yes.
It's like actually normally on a Wednesday, I'll get my show ready and then I'll go over to a practice, burn a little time before 6 o'clock, and that's the way it goes. I mean, right now you have half the number of teams that were in action last week, and it'll be half the number of teams next week. And very quickly we'll get towards the state finals at Camp Randall Stadium. But the level of competition also goes up significantly between Level 1 and Level 2, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things when people talk about football playoffs and how they are different, and obviously things need to be looked at with whether it's the computer or with how we balance things out with the number of 8-man teams there are now. But it is still the one sport where you have to qualify. And what that means is sometimes there's some lopsided matchups in Level 1. But once you get past Level 1, there are usually no bad football teams left. And so each week you no longer get to play that worst team in your conference in between two tough games or whatever, and every game has a lot of meaning, and that's where we're at right now.
There were 112 games played in 11-player action in Level 1. There were 8 more games added in the 8-player playoffs. There were 22 road wins in the 11-player side, 1 road win on the 8-player side. So 22 of 112. Math is okay. I guess that's a little bit under 20%. That's not a lot, but at the same time, as I said to you earlier, that's almost more than I expected.
Yeah, I would say too, and obviously you probably expect some of those 5-4 matchups to go that way. But if you look at the first game we're going to talk about in a minute, Everest and Hudson, that's a 7-2, and I mean there were some other ones that were probably close enough that number could have been a little bit higher. So I don't. At the end of the day, I'm not exactly sure what it means, but I'm sure somebody is figuring this data out, and it will be part of the conversation moving forward in regards to the computer seeding.
Well, let's jump in and talk about the action from last week. In Division 1, Level 1 action, the conference champion, DC Everest from the Wisconsin Valley / Big Rivers East, played Hudson from the Big Rivers Conference, 7-2 versus 7-2. Number 7 seed DC Everest and number 2 seeded Hudson, but it was all DC Everest, and Evergreens roll past the Hudson Raiders 50-21. Logan George exceptionally proficient at the quarterback position, hitting 15 of 19 passes, 244 yards, 4 touchdowns on the night. Passing numbers were pretty good. The rushing numbers were even better, perhaps, for Blake Bankston. He carried the ball 28 times for 238 yards, couple of touchdowns, and if that wasn't enough, he added 4 catches for 93 yards. Tight end Cole O'Brien had 6 catches for 98 yards and 2 scores for DC Everest. Cooper Adair, 11 of 20, 144 yards and a score for Hudson, and it was just dominance. 561 yards of total offense for Everest, 249 yards for Hudson. It's one thing to say, hey, we were underseeded. It's another thing to go out there and prove it. And I think DC Everest proved they were underseeded.
Yeah, and like we just mentioned, this wasn't a 5 versus 4. This was a 7 versus 2, which meant a long road trip for DC Everest, heading all the way over to Hudson. And I mean, you look at these numbers, and that's what you kind of numbers you're looking at. Did they play? No offense to anybody, but did they play Eau Claire Memorial and have numbers like that? I mean, that's pretty remarkable. Not just the overall 561, but to look how they did it. 244 through the air. Blake continues to be outstanding with almost 240 yards rushed and a couple of TDs and 4 catches for 93. And then they're using their tight end and they still have two really good receivers in that mix too. So I would say they are a tough team to defend right now and doing really, really well.
DC Everest will move on to play Madison Memorial on Friday night in Level 2. Madison Memorial, the number 3 seed, and I would argue an underseeded team as well, showing that perhaps they should have been a higher seed as they rolled past Stevens Point by a score of 33-21. It was actually not that close as Stevens Point scored a couple of late touchdowns to tighten it after it was 33-6. It was actually 27-0 late in the third quarter. The numbers for Stevens Point, and again, I did not go back and actually watch this game like I did the Merrill game we're going to talk about later. Chardonnay was 9 of 17, 112 yards and a touchdown and a pick. Not great, but the rushing game, he had 23 carries, 133 yards and a touchdown. Johnny Matthews, 29 rushes, 152 yards. When you have 2 rushers that combined for over 50 carries, obviously they had the football quite a bit. It makes you think that they were not able to finish very well.
Yeah, they're not finished very well, and how many of those point or yards and stuff came a little later in the game, being up 27-0. Obviously, when to score 21, I would say that depending on when they got that last touchdown, Memorial probably tightened things up a little bit. But yeah, I think good season for Spash, consistent, and I think it speaks to, like you said at the beginning, that Madison Memorial possibly was a little underseeded in this one, and it'll be interesting to see if things go the way we kind of think they're going to go in the next week's matchups, what this section looks like. I mean, one of the things that I liked about this matchup and going down to Waunakee last week and watching this matchup or knowing about this matchup is just seeing these different teams playing each other, like not having Kimberly, Appleton North, Neenah in that same bracket. So it's kind of nice to play some teams from a different part of the state and see how you match up in those. And I think part of that in regards to Wausau West a little bit kind of maybe took away some of that mental edge. Like we know when you go play a team from the Fox Valley, because we played with them for a long time, that a 6-3 or a 5-4 team in that conference is probably still a really good football team. So you kind of were able to go down to a place like Waunakee and not knowing much about, not having much history, and your kids not kind of having that preconceived mindset. So I liked how the sectional laid out this year.
And mentioning that game, Waunakee and Wausau West had the game right here on 98.9 WXCO on Friday of last week. And Waunakee defeated the Warriors 28-14, but really a score that was not indicative of that football game. West got a very quick turnover on the second play of the game. Middle screen, the ball was tipped. Marcus McDonald grabbed it. Warriors had the short field, 13 yards, and then a 9-yard touchdown pass. Gave them a quick 7-0 lead. A little bit of a controversial call that gave Waunakee an opportunity to score. And then a pick 6, and all of a sudden it was 14-7. It stayed that way for a long time. The Warriors came out, a very impressive drive to start off the third quarter, got back to even. And I thought maybe the biggest drive of the game was after the Warriors had the football for a long time. They got the kickoff in the third quarter. Waunakee backs maybe feeling a little pressure with the incredible record that program has had, making it to the final a year ago in D2. But that touchdown drive right away I thought was a big factor in that game. And then they would add for the first time able to get their big receiver Caden McKenzie finally a 40-yard touchdown pass midway through the fourth quarter. But I thought that that drive after it was 14-14 was a critical moment in that game.
Yeah, definitely. I think this game was choppy to say the least. I loved your comment or stat at halftime that the score was 14-7 Waunakee, 61 yards for the Warriors, 60 yards for Waunakee, 6 turnovers. And you didn't even mention the penalties because I'm not sure I've ever seen that many penalties in a football game. So it was just really broken. I thought from a Wausau West standpoint, I thought they had a really nice game plan in all 3 phases. I thought one of their better defensive games of the year, prepared and executed very well, especially up front, and the interceptions on the back end, and I think that special teams. I mean, they came out after scoring that first touchdown and kind of did that pooch kick, and the ball was theirs for the taking. So just some good things that bounced our way and then didn't bounce the Warriors' way. So interesting game. Waunakee's definitely going to have to clean some things up moving forward if they're looking to make a return trip to Camp Randall. But I was a little surprised at the number of mistakes they made and how hard they had to work to get what they got in that game.
I was talking to some folks before the game, and I actually said that if Wausau West is to win the football game, they would need Bennett Matson to make some big plays, and he had a good night. He had a terrific grab in the corner of the end zone to give the Warriors that 7-0 lead. He made a terrific grab on a long pass on the far sideline. He had 7 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown, and really that was the big part of the Wausau West offense. Boy, Matson, again, he really is a handful for anybody to try and cover.
He is. I think he's kind of a unique talent in that he's not probably I was going to say Xavier McKinney, but he's probably not Xavier, like athletically, right? Some of the other tools that Brooks Hinson and some of these other kids have, but he is a gamer, or not just a gamer. He works hard. He's a really good athlete, but he does the football things really well. I mean, he probably doesn't set the world on fire with his 40 time and his vertical, although he does work hard in the weight room. But God, he's so good at getting open and high pointing the football. I mean, I don't know how many times this year we watched him get up and take what they call those 50-50 balls. I think he got just about every one of those, and is a really good teammate, really good leader, and kind of capped off a really good senior campaign for him. And we talked last week going into that game with Coach Johnson too, and we talked about the defense, like who are the guys who needs to step up, and DeAndre Bournes up front had a really nice game and made some really big plays, and on the back end Marcus McDonald and Jacob Sassman kind of stepped up and did their things as well. So from that standpoint, you even though there's a lot of tears and it's hard to watch your season end, especially in a game that you probably had a good shot at winning and having a good upset, but they could definitely walk off the field knowing that they did some things really well, and nobody, I guess, probably too many mistakes, but at the end of the day, nobody really underachieved. Your big players stepped up and had good games.
And I think, like you were talking about earlier, their conference, because he looked at the numbers. Vance Johnson, the quarterback, 71%. I mean, they threw the ball quite a bit. He had, a 19-4 touchdown to interception ratio. Did not see that pass game at all. I know that West, as you said, came out and really did a nice job of executing a good game plan, but at the same time, I think that, again, is one of those examples where, as we move forward, you're going to learn more. And I think, again, this is a new adventure for Waunakee. It would be interesting to reseed, to be honest with you, because I think that the reseeding would be a little bit different at this point, just based on what we learned in 1 week.
Yeah, I think that those are all the little things, and who knows? Maybe Waunakee turns it on after this week. Maybe they came in.
Like it. I mean, any sport in playoffs, sometimes you got to find a way to win the night you're not quite 100% execution.
Maybe they came in overconfident. You know what I mean? Wausau West 5-4 team. They looked at their tradition, whatever. But that's not what I saw out there. They seemed. And this isn't throwing shade at Waunakee or anything like that, but they looked undisciplined. Their sideline looked undisciplined. Their coaches spent a lot of time out in the middle of the field yelling or trying to get officials. It was just a weird vibe from their sideline. And it could have had something to do with the fact that maybe they too thought that game was going to be in hand much sooner, and we're getting a little nervous and weren't used to having that sort of struggle. But at the end of the day, they got the win and get to play next week.
Yeah, they will host Middleton coming up on Friday. Middleton rallied. In fact, they were down 14-0 early against Chippewa Falls, and they came back and won 19-14. So that was a case where one of those Big 8 schools was able to beat the BRC, which in a sense was a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, I thought too. One of the nice thing about that stadium, they had the scores for all the games in our bracket on their scoreboard.
I missed that.
At halftime they kept scrolling through them, and throughout the second half too, they had.
I have to lean out the window to actually look to my left. So
that was kind of a neat feature. They had those games up there, and a bunch of the other local ones too from the lower divisions and different stuff. So that was very cool. But it was kind of neat watching Chippewa Falls having success, watching the Big Everest, how Big Everest was up early, and so kind of had a good feeling about how the Valley and the BRC was doing, matching up in there. At the end of the day, we got one.
And if we ever go back there, I'll know to peek at the scoreboard.
And there you go. Nice facility. Another nice facility.
It was a nice facility. They were very nice, and it was a nice trip. And hopefully they'll come to Wausau sometime.
Exactly.
Division II, another team from the Valley, New Richmond and Marshfield. Marshfield, who had given New Richmond everything they could handle back in week 1, and they gave them everything they could handle for 3 quarters here in level 1. But in the end, New Richmond pulls away late to win 30-10, stay undefeated on the season. Marshfield drops to 4-6. It was 14-10 at halftime. It was 17-10 after 3. Marshfield's offense, which has been a bit of an Achilles heel for the Tigers throughout the course of the season when they struggled, never got into New Richmond territory in the second half, and New Richmond was able to run the football. Joe Hepner, 35 rushes, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns for New Richmond. But obviously New Richmond, very good football team to go through that conference undefeated, says a lot in itself. And Marshfield, again, after 3 weeks, that was a program that was on its back. Really, they did a good job of getting back up and ultimately making it back to the playoffs and giving New Richmond 3 quarters of a tight football game.
Yeah, I would agree. I think at the end of when you do your reflection back on the season, I think Coach Gadel at Marshfield is going to look back on there and think that they have a lot of positives coming out of it moving forward. They ended up finishing 3rd in the conference and had some nice wins. Good, obviously a nice win over Wausau West and very close game with New Richmond early. Probably a tough draw for them with as well as New Richmond was playing down the stretch. But that they played a conference champion, level 1. Nothing to shake your head. And I will be interested to watch New Richmond moving forward as well to see how if they continue to play strong football moving forward.
Let's do Division III before we take a timeout because it'd be good to talk about it before we have our coach guest coming up from Division III. Starting off over at Tom Field on Friday night, Fox Valley Lutheran outscores Wausau East 44-41. Both teams 6-4. Fox Valley Lutheran uses their 6-4 to advance for another week. Wausau East ends their season at 6-4. It was a very rough start for East. They fell behind 23-0 early in the second quarter. East had a huge second quarter. They scored 27 points in that period. It was 30-27 at halftime. Then again, the old odds and evens in that game because the odds were good for Fox Valley Lutheran. They scored a couple of touchdowns in the third to make it 44-27. East would then score twice in the fourth but came up short. Davis Winter, big night, 21 of 30, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Jesse Napgezek, 10 catches, 174 yards, 3 touchdowns, added a kickoff return touchdown and 12 tackles on defense. Elmer Hurd had 13 tackles. Again, for the folks who were at Tom Field Friday night, it must have been quite a roller coaster of a football game. And not to be, it's not, I don't think, shocking because when you look at East, they got some real skill athletes, and the offense has been, when they're rolling, the big factor. And there have been times this season where defensively they've tried to bend but not break, and other times it's kind of been bend and a little breakage, and they kind of broke big time on Friday night. So, but again, I tell you, 44-41 game, one of the more entertaining games, I'm sure, in level 1.
Absolutely, and I would say this game definitely speaks to Wausau East's style of play this year, right? Big plays, and I think also a credit to them being down 23-0, being in the playoffs for the first time since 2012. I think you.
2012. Yeah.
And so it's been a long time. Obviously, none of these kids or coaches were part of the last time they were there. So I think it would have been really easy for them down 23-0 in the second to kind of fold and for this one to be running clock in the second half. But credit to them rallying back. And like we said earlier, they're a big play offense, and they're big player. They're players made big plays, right? Kind of like we talked a little earlier about West. I think East is the same thing with Jesse Napgezek and his big plays. We had Elmer Hurd on a couple weeks ago and talked about his defensive play. He had another great game. And I would say at the end of the year, you got to look back and say Davis Winter had one heck of a season replacing Pacey Weber last year, who did such a nice job and was such a good leader on that team. I don't know enough about their offseason and what they were expecting out of Davis, but week in and week out, he had a really nice season and continued that into the playoffs.
Absolutely. And Medford will be the next opponent for Fox Valley Lutheran, number 1 seed. Medford Raiders, champions of the Great Northern Conference. They defeated Lakeland 28-7. Lakeland finishes 5-5. Medford now 9-1. Lakeland actually did a pretty good job against Medford. Paxton Rothmeyer held 134 yards. He had been over 200 yards 7 weeks in a row and over 300 yards a couple of times as well. He had 21 carries, 134 yards, and 2 scores. Not a lot of passing, as one comes to expect with Medford, but Parker Listener was efficient, 4 of 6, 74 yards. Declan McQuaid was 12 of 20, 120 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks for Lakeland, and their big runner was not able to get going. Noah Bruckner had 9 rushes, 17 yards for Lakeland. I sometimes feel like when we talk about Medford, we can just sort of replay what we've been saying week after week after week, because they have a recipe. And when the food comes out nice, I guess you just keep on cooking it the same way.
Right. That's a great way of putting it. And I think the things that stick out to me in this game is Medford. I mean, I probably expected Paxton Rothmeyer to have more yards. But I mean, look, he almost averaged 7 yards or 6+. But it's
what a lousy night.
I was going to say, bummer. Too bad for him. But the other thing, 21 attempts is kind of a low number for him as well. I remember games when he was rushing for 30+. And then when you look at Parker Listener's numbers, 6 attempts passing. So I'd be interested to know how many total offensive plays they even had. And I think on the other side of this, you look at it and say, not only did their formula, we talk a lot about their offense in Paxton Rothmeyer, but they obviously played really good defense as well. 9 carries for 17 yards for Lakeland's leading rusher and 12 for 20 for 120. That their defense played really good football.
And I think they're in a pretty good spot right now, with Fox Valley Lutheran. I think that obviously with East putting up the points, that Medford has to feel pretty good. And then perhaps again on Alaska. And on Alaska, and to be honest with you again, Merrill is surprised during the season. And on Alaska, as we talked about, has been a bit of a Great Northern Conference killer in the playoffs over the years, knocking Medford out back-to-back years, usually pretty impressive fashion. And it was a great game last week in the western part of the state. And on Alaska pulls out a 13-8 win over Merrill. The game was scoreless until the final moments of the first half, and I watched it last night, as I said. I wanted to be ready for our discussion, and I'm watching this, and I'd known that, reading the recap, that Onalaska scored late in the first half, and I'm watching, and Merrill's driving. Merrill's got the ball, less than a minute to go, and I'm thinking, holy cow, what's going to happen here? And then a blocked field goal, and then a 2-play touchdown drive, and boy, I mean, a real tough turnaround at the end of the first half, and sometimes that would be one that would be such a kick in the gut that could knock you down, especially after a long bus ride to get there. But Merrill was able to come back out and then take the lead in the fourth quarter. They were able to score on a 22-yard touchdown pass from Aiden Lonsdorf to Kalen Allen, followed by a 2-point conversion run by Lonsdorf, and all of a sudden, with 7:45 to go in the game, Merrill had an 8-7 lead. But then, much like the game we saw, the number higher seed, a little bit of pressure right after you felt like you have the momentum. If you're Merrill, Onalaska was able to take the football, respond with a touchdown drive that culminated with a 4-yard touchdown run by Cameron Cornett with 5:06 left. Merrill would drive it into Onalaska territory, but saw a drive stopped at the Onalaska 44 in the final 2 minutes. Callum Wheeler, 16 rushes, 111 yards. Kalen Allen, 5 catches, 75 yards for a touchdown as well for Merrill. But I got to say, and we're going to talk to the coach about it, it was very exciting. Even knowing what happened, I found it to be very exciting to watch. You get a little nervous watching a playoff game that goes down to the wire like that. And based on what we talked about last year when it came to the Merrill Blue Jays, struggling to score, struggling to win, one of the, I think, bigger turnarounds in the area this year.
Yeah, I would agree. A great season, tough loss. I mean, what an exciting game. And we talked earlier off the air too that, like you had said, Onalaska's a GNC killer, and even this season they took it to Medford, and Medford beat them early in the season last year. But kind of this one was one I think that the stakeholders probably in Vegas probably were putting heavy money on Alaska in this one. But I think this kind of, and we'll talk to Coach about this in a minute, but I think this kind of speaks to that program development. We talk a lot about the teams within a season and growth and stuff like that, but this is kind of a program question, right? Where are you at, right? And so nice season, got into the playoffs, got into a close game, and now it's about, and as you enter the offseason, you talk about next year, now you start talking about what's the next step we need to take to win these games or to get these games to be home games so we don't have to drive those. And I think there's several games that we've talked about where that's where those programs are at, is finding out how to win in the postseason.
We will talk about Division 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 player a little bit later on. But coming up at 7:06, our student-athlete guest, Wausau East senior Jesse Napgezek. But coming up next, we'll talk about the Merrill game in Alaska last week and talk about the Merrill Blue Jays season with their head football coach, Jason Wadzinski, coming up next. It is the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO.
What's your idea of fall fun? Maybe it's hitting the trails on a new ATV. Then it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Or if you're thinking of a UTV for hauling wood or hunting, or maybe just because it would make the tasks around your property so much easier, it's time to call CCU. ATVs, UTVs, utility tractors, and their attachments for care of your property. Whether you need it for fun or to get the job done, Clover Belt Credit Union is here to help with the great financing you want. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Thinking about a motorhome or maybe a snowplow for your ATV or utility tractor? Call CCU for great financing. And if you're thinking motorcycle, Clover Belt Credit Union has the financing you need for the bike you want. Call or apply online at ccuwausau.com. Check it out. For vehicle loans, for mortgages, for financing fall fun, call Clover Belt Credit Union. That's CCU. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
Local radio thrives when it serves the community. WXCO is no different, and we're looking to add someone to our staff that is well connected around town. Someone who can help our local businesses increase traffic and their visibility among our audience. From connecting clients with high school sports, local news and weather, or the Chad Holmes Show. If you know local business owners, we'd like to get to know you. If you'd like to know more about this opportunity, send me, Chad Holmes, a message at chad.holmes@civicmedia.us. That's chad.holmes@civicmedia.us. And let's set up a time to talk.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM. Again, we've changed the address of our website. You'll still get to us if you go to bullfallsradio.com, but get used to it. WXCO.FM. Also, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. And again, K5 Construction, our sponsor, a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence. From design and planning to the final construction, K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. And we are happy to welcome our coach guest for this week, Merrill High School head football coach Jason Wadzinski. And it's a bookend discussion because you were with us for our first show of the season, and you're here now after the level 1 games. And number one, congrats on a really nice season for you and your team.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. And I guess before we talk about the season as a whole, let's talk about that game against Onalaska, because me and Coach were talking both last week and when we recapped the game that Onalaska's been a bit of a thorn in the side of the Great Northern Conference in this bracket for a lot of years. I mean, I remember Mosinee going over there, and Medford has had some real difficult times getting ready for the game.
Yeah.
What was your sense about Onalaska? Did you feel like this was a matchup that you can go over there and give them everything and win the football game?
Well, first off, you just don't know. Round one of the playoffs when you're a 7 seed, what team's going to show up? Is it the team that went and rolled over Anago? Is it the team that had a really nice game against Rhinelander? Or is it the team that showed up on a Saturday in Merrill against Tomahawk? So there's that unknown piece to it. And like you said, Onalaska has been just a quality team and kind of slapped around the GNC for the most part, other than the I believe it was the non-con game for Medford maybe last year at the start.
Last year,
but I believe they dropped them in the playoffs then.
Mm-hmm.
So they're tough, and they're coached well. Yashinsky down there, he runs a good program. He's been doing it there for a while. When I started my coaching career on that side of the state in Whitehall, Wisconsin, just between Eau Claire and La Crosse there, Tommy Shinsky was in Onalaska at that time already doing his thing. So he's a guy that's been around a long time doing it the right way, and the quality teams that they're going to put out there year in and year out.
Looking at the game itself, I was saying before we could turn on the mics, it was not a game where it was 13-8 because you stopped them in the red zone 8 times and they didn't score. It was a game that was an exceptionally even game. You moved the football. You had the football in Onalaska territory a number of times where you came up empty. What was the difference ultimately? Was it the last minute of the first half where you had a chance to go into the locker room up 7 instead go down 7? Was it the final drive? There were a lot of different areas. Was there one thing, or was it just a couple of little things?
Just a handful of little things. You can go back and you can look at the film 100 times. I probably looked at it 20. There's 5 or 6 events throughout the game that could have easily shifted things our way. When you have a 5-point loss, that's a tough pill to swallow, especially against a team that's a 2 seed. They're supposed to have their way in the first round, and we really came out and we had what we felt was a pretty solid game plan. And the boys just executed it flawlessly. Minus those few miscues they had the big play at the end of the first half. And that's on me. When we have the ball with under a minute to go and third down, we know we're going for the field goal. If we don't make it, I gotta run the ball. I gotta try to milk the clock a little bit more before we try that field goal. Instead of passing it incomplete, left some time on the clock. They get the ball back. They're able to make a few more plays, one more play than maybe they should have, and that's a coaching error at that point. But we talked in halftime and really got the boys, got their heads right, got them back on track. It helps when it was a 7-0 game against. It felt like a David and Goliath type of situation. And it's like, fellas, stick to the game plan. We're in this. I'm sure everybody on their side of the locker room right now is getting chewed. Like, this is kind of embarrassing for them right now. Like, we got to get back out there and keep going. And they did. They responded. Man, they came out in the second half and we executed exactly like we needed to. We preached all week, in order for us to be in this game, we have to play mistake-free football. We can't turn the ball over, and we got to create a takeaway or two, and we did just that. We shifted up the coverage. We stemmed our defensive backs, our corners, and our safeties back and forth to try to confuse them. We noticed on film that they did a really nice job of kind of milking the play clock, and their coach we could tell that he was calling in what coverages once they figured out if they were man or if they were in a zone, and then they would kind of audible some of their routes from there. So we wanted to make sure that we disguised it real well, and we at one point we flipped to a zone and got an interception on that play, and it just things fell the right way. It just we had a couple unfortunate snaps and a couple missed opportunities in the red zone, and it can't all go right when it's a 7-2. But you know, it didn't come our way at the end.
Well, that's kind of, and you've talked a lot about it, and so maybe you don't have anything a lot more to say about it, but that was kind of what my question was. It would have been real easy to go in at halftime and say, yeah, we played a good half, boys, but yeah, or in their minds. I mean, that is what's going through their minds, right?
Sure.
Like, we lucked, whatever. Would have been nice to be up 3 or to be 0-0 at halftime, but it got away from us, and so it would have been real easy for that to run downhill in a hurry. So was the halftime stuff more about X's and O's, or was it more about making sure they were mentally right coming out in the second half?
100% the mental piece. We didn't change anything schematically. Defensively, we felt like we had a really nice plan. We knew on film that, leading rusher in the Mississippi Valley, almost 1,500 yards rushing, a very explosive guy. We watched him in the Medford film pop a couple real nice runs. We mixed up fronts a lot. We had a couple different base alignments that we did, and we stunted with our DNs and our tackles, and then our tackles and our nose tackles, and we'd be sending backers off of the stunts. I mean, we had something called, I think, every single defensive snap except for 2 snaps, we had something dialed up. So we really emphasized, 8 in the box. The plan was, we felt good about our guys on the perimeter. We're going to man them up. We took our quarterback, Aiden Lonsdorf, and we played him as safety, which we hadn't done all year. We wanted him to be a one-way guy where we could have a conversation. We're like, you know what? It's playoffs. We got to leave it all out there. So we said, okay, you 3, receiver, tight end. Backer, you got any back on the side that slips out in coverage, and we're just going to pack the box and roll the dice. So schematically, X's and O-wise, we felt really good about it. Going back to your question now, as in terms of halftime, walking in there with being such a letdown at the very end, the emotions were high. There were some tears at halftime already, and it was just a matter of trying to regroup the guys. Like, look, you're halfway done. Like, save the tears for the next 24 minutes. Like, we got work to do. And gosh, I'm so proud of those guys. And it starts with those 12 seniors we had leading the charge here out of the second half and sticking with the game plan and aggressive, pop them in the mouth football. That was just the emphasis. If we go out there and we play hard and we kind of impose our will against a team that's probably not going to be expecting that, I think we have a shot, and we did. So.
Again, we're talking to Jason Wadzinski, head football coach of Merrill High School, here on the Big High School Sports Show, presented by K5 Construction. Your last 2 games were playoff games. You had that couple of I saw you play against East on that Saturday afternoon, and I thought it was an incredible effort. You were down 2 quarterbacks. You had E.J. Wykes playing the quarterback, and yet you were this close to knocking off East and basically clinching that day.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, it was a rough one against Tomahawk. Then going up to Rhinelander, and obviously Rhinelander was not playing for a playoff berth, but at the same time they wanted to beat you. There was the 100th meeting between Merrill and Rhinelander. Yeah. I imagine that game, in a certain sense, was even more pressure-packed than the playoff game was, just to get there, because you were so close, and then to have it almost slip away like that had to have been a pressure-packed Week 9.
It was hard. That Tomahawk game, that one was tough. Kudos to them. They showed up on a rainy Saturday, and they brought it, and we didn't. I can make all the excuses in the world, but just we didn't seem to be in it that day. I don't think 3 back-to-back Saturday games helped. I think by the third one, I think a lot of our boys were clocked out, especially after such a tight game against East the week before, where we really put a lot out there and came up short with guys missing. So, just morale-wise, it was tough. It was tough after Tomahawk to say, okay, hey, boys, let's go one more time. And with a lot of those seniors 2 years ago when we, same scenario, up in Rhinelander, finishing 5-4, sneaking the playoffs with the 7th seed. I think a lot of those guys had that in their brain, where 2 years ago that ended with us going over to Rice Lake and getting just destroyed 60-6.
Right.
and I'm sure that was in their head. You have these goals and you have these expectations, and as the season progresses, for better or worse, they improve or they become unattainable. And I feel as though after the Tomahawk game, a lot of our boys kind of saw the writing on the wall where now we're looking at a 7 or 8 seed if we beat Rhinelander. And I think that was tough because in the back of their head they're thinking about that Rice Lake game. So really to get them dialed in again and go up and take care of business in Hodeg country, which is never an easy place to play. It always seems to be a little windier and a little chillier up there. And just real proud of them and how they finished their season and then how they regrouped going into round 1.
Coach, you've kind of talked about the ebbs and flows of this season and kind of maybe peaking at the right time in Rhinelander and having a great playoff game here against Onalaska. You talked about your 12 seniors and talk as much about them as you want. Obviously, they're the backbone of this team, but along the way, have some of your younger guys started to step up over the course of these 10 games? Like, have you started to see some growth and have some things to be optimistic about as you head into the offseason with the guys who will be back?
100%. So as of right now, I think we finished the season with 17 current juniors on the team. So the goal, obviously, is always to retain. So if that can become 17 seniors or more, we can get a couple more guys out, maybe that didn't come out this year. That's always important to keep those numbers up. Keelan Allen, our leading receiver this year, he's a junior. He had a very nice game. He's also a cornerback for us, or a safety most of the year. He played corner that last game. He had a very nice season for us. I think he did eclipse 400 yards receiving if you count the playoff game. He's a solid kid, explosive kid. On the line, we have Mason Block, who we tried to move around. We would love to have that guy at a guard position because he's a little bowling ball, and he's a physical kid. He's an explosive kid. But at the same time, when you run the pistol, he's our most consistent snapper. So that's where he's going to be inked in for now, unless somebody can prove that they can also do it. I think he would be better used elsewhere, but for now, that's where he's going to stay. He's a two-way guy, played defensive tackle for us all year. Noah Klug, he's inside linebacker for us, who we bounced him around from nose guard to backer so that we could change between a 40 and a 50 personnel without having to move anybody off or on the field. He's going to be a big piece coming back. So I think we have more pieces in place looking ahead than we had 2 years ago coming off of that playoff appearance where we went from 19 seniors down to 6. We've got 17 guys coming back, and a number of those guys, as you said, they have developed, they have grown throughout the year, so I'm very optimistic about the future of Merrill football.
Going into this season, what were your expectations as the coach? Obviously, last season was a tough one. I mean, you said it. You went to the playoffs 2 years ago, then went through a winless regular season, and now coming back, and you knew that you had a dozen seniors, but at the same time, it was a group that had struggled a year ago. Did your team exceed your expectations, reach your expectations, or I guess how would you answer that?
They really did reach my expectations. I tried to keep that a little close to my vest here going into the season because you just don't know coming off an O season. But just working with these guys throughout the whole school year and watching their progression in the weight room and the things we were doing on the turf with captain's practices and such. Of those 12 seniors, a solid group of those 12 really did put in more hours of work than I've had. So my expectations were back to playoff territory. But again, when you're coming off a season like we had last year, until you play that first game over in Osceola and have kind of that measuring stick, you don't know. And you don't know how they're going to respond. You put in all that work in the off season, but still work in the off season versus playing 48 minutes of football, high school football, that's a different world. So hopefully it translates over, and in this case it did.
And you look at this off season moving forward, and I mean, it's great to think that you went from an over season to a playoff. Like, so it's for these kids who are coming back to be able to see the gains you made from one season to the next. We talked right before you came on the air when Chad and I were finishing up the last session talking about the handful of things, and this was true of probably just about every game we talked about that was close. The handful of things that happen in a game that are the difference between winning and losing, right? Obviously, most teams' first goal is to compete for a conference championship, and then after that, it's to win playoff games. So being back in the playoffs is the first step. That then kind of becomes like part of your offseason motivation is how do you get those playoff games to be at home, and then how do you win those? So what types of things, what are some, and I know it's only been a week and so the reflection piece hasn't even really started, but what are some of the little things that you will look to improve upon from this year to next, the things that you can work on in the off season? Obviously the first answer for everybody is weight room, but what are some of those little mental things or little game things that maybe consistently happened week in and week out that you think you need to clean up for next year?
Well, and I think a lot of it comes with the planning of the off season. So, for example, today we started right after school conducting goal setting meetings with underclassmen. So we're trying to do 6 a night after school while these kids are lifting. Kind of had a team meeting yesterday, turned in all the equipment, all that jazz. Threw out a Google form for these kids to fill out. Just what's your team goal next year in your eyes? What we talk academic goals because that's a piece of it that's important, and then maybe what the last part of it is what's your personal football goal? Are you a kid that is a sophomore and next year as a junior you're hoping to start on a special teams unit? Are you a junior who got playing time this year and you want to be a starter on the defensive side of the ball? Are you a guy who started this year and maybe next year you want all conference recognition? So individual football goals. So we're beginning those meetings, and I think that's super crucial, especially that team portion. And looking through the forms and just the 6 meetings we've had already, the emphasis on the team goal, they're realistic. They're not great. Like, well, let's go win state. Like, no, that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing realistic things. So, for example, 3 of our 6 today were let's get in a position where we would host a playoff game, so a top 4 seed. I mean, those are realistic things that, yeah, if we continue to work hard and build and keep those numbers up, there's no reason we can't be a top 4 seed. Had a couple things gone differently this year, we would have been a top 4 seed. So.
Is your job easier now after having some success? As you said, the kids that maybe you see in the halls that you would like to say, hey, come on out, try football, try to be part of this group that we're trying to build something. Does your job get any easier after a season where you do, even with the tough loss, you leave with a sense of accomplishment as opposed to maybe a year when you didn't win any games?
I'm certainly a more pleasant person. Yeah, it does. It 100% does. Winning, it just makes everything easier. It makes recruiting the hallways easier. It makes this portion right now of motivating and trying to get these kids dialed back in easier. I also think that opposed to 2 years ago where the season ended with a blowout loss, having come so close to really a huge upset, the boys they're motivated, they are hungry, they're ready to get back at it. The weight room was all-time high for October 30th today. Now I know that's where we're at right now, and what happens in February and March dictates much more than the couple weeks after the season when their minds are still in it. But at the same time, they are hungry, and you can tell that they're very motivated to get back out there and just keep this train going.
What is your message like for the kids who are coming off of this? And everyone has a couple weeks right now, but what is your what's the difference in your message to the kids who are going into a winter sport and expectation wise, and what message are you giving them versus the kids who aren't playing a winter sport and have some more time?
Yeah. So what I would say is, for all of them, the message has been, if you're in a position where your body needs to recover, do that first. Then we'll take care of business and get kind of into the swing of things after that. Especially if you're in one of those winter sports. That's kind of a piece that we talk about, being in a school district the size of Merrill, where we're not as big as we used to be, and numbers aren't growing. We want to encourage as many multi-sports athletes as possible in order for all of our athletic programs to be successful. So in terms of weight training and things like that, my message to our guys is, if you are in a sport, if you're a wrestler, if you're a basketball player, come spring, if you're baseball, if you're track and field, whatever it may be, if you are in a team sport, once that season starts, I don't need you to, do the extra weightlifting. Like, you focus on your sport. Every sport's going to have some type of strength and conditioning built within within their practices and things that they're doing. I need them to compete and grow and get better at just being an athlete and being a competitor more than anything else. Now, for those guys that aren't in a sport, in a winter sport specifically, those ones I'm probably a little harder on right away. Like, we're trying to jump on those guys right away and get them in a consistent pattern and doing good things and showing up and putting in the work after school and things like that, because we don't want them to just go home and play Call of Duty and drink Mountain Dew and
That's my life.
So that is the goal. Is we want those guys that aren't competing to get back and get to work, and the ones that are competing to take the time they need and then just go be the best at whatever they're doing. So,
anything else for the coach?
Just great job this year. It was fun watching you guys. Even the ebbs and flows, like kind of, and what a great game last week. Congratulations. Obviously, you're never satisfied with a loss, but I love, my big thing, especially in the role of athletic director, is I want to see our kids compete, and it sounds like your kids competed like crazy. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And like what we said with the seniors after the game at Onalaska, the only thing I asked them was, did they feel like they left everything out there, and they could answer yes. And to me, that's all I could ask.
And I got to tell you, I mean, from the time I talked to you before week one up to this point, very, very impressed with what your team was able to do this season. Starting with that first win against Osceola, and then, I thought as well, every time you kind of needed a response. After the 40-0 loss against Medford, you had the response in Anago. After the two tough losses, including the Tomahawk loss, you responded at Rhinelander. I imagine those are the things that also, as a coach, you feel good about. Your team was able to respond at the right times.
Yeah, and I'd love to sit here and take credit for that, but there's 12 guys that we're not going to have next year, and gosh, they're a lot. They deserve a lot of it. So,
Jason Wadzinski, head football coach of the Merrill Blue Jays. What's this, 4 years?
Yeah, 4 done. Yeah,
You're one of the veterans already.
Oh, gosh, yeah, look at that.
But thanks again for coming by.
Thank you.
We're going to take a time out. We're going to have our information update at the top of the hour, get the latest news, weather, and sports, and then come back with hour number 2 of the program. We'll have a recap of the other action in the playoffs, but we'll have our student-athlete guest coming up. We'll be talking to Wausau East senior Jesse Napgezek as our student-athlete guest coming up. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's commercial printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services, whether you need vehicle graphics.
You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction. K5 Construction, a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence. From design and planning to the final construction, K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. Again, thanks to Merrill High School head football coach Jason Wadzinski for joining us. And again, if you miss any of that conversation or any of our first hour along with the second hour, we do always post our episodes as a podcast. You can go to WXCO.FM and then go to the shows page and then go to the Big High School Sports Show. We get all of our previous episodes are there. And you can also subscribe by going to all the podcast hosts, whether it's Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts. Just subscribe to the Big High School Sports Show. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes, and very happy to welcome our student-athlete guest for this week from Wausau East High School, senior Jesse Napgezek. Jesse, thank you for coming back on the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. And obviously, you're very busy during the high school sports seasons. You're on the basketball team, which is getting ready, but just wrapped up a very impressive football season for you and your teammates. Before we talk about the season itself, let's talk about Friday's playoff game. Obviously, it was big for Wausau East. First time East has hosted a playoff game in 17 years. And what happened early?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you look up there and it's the second quarter. It's 23-0 before your team came roaring back. But was it a night where it was a little maybe difficult to get the footing early in terms of a lot going on around with a playoff game at home?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, like you said, we haven't been in the playoffs or in that situation at all in 12 years. So it was all new to us, new to the coaches. So, yeah, we got down early, 0-20, and I think it was in the first quarter. But, I mean, great group of guys. We have a lot of perseverance, so we just fought back and made it a close game in the end.
What was the change? What was the catalyst that got you guys from probably being a little shell-shocked down 23-0 to getting back into it? Was it kind of player-led? Did Coach kind of bring everyone together and give a Newt Rockne speech or what? Or did something just click? Big play? What happened? What was the change?
Yeah, so we just got punched early, like I said. I think we just were caught off guard. We weren't ready to play right away, but I remember we had a timeout, or maybe it was the end of the first quarter. Our defensive coordinator, Coach Zhang, said, we gotta wake up, we gotta fight back, and then we had a kick return touchdown, and then I think they scored, but we had some forced fumbles like back to back, and then scored right away, and before you knew it was like 27-30 going into half, and then it was just a dogfight from there. Second half was a crazy game.
When it all wrapped up, and obviously you look at the scoreboard, 44-41. I mean, just an amazing game. What was the feeling? Was it like, how do you look at it? Because obviously there's so much good for the season, but then it comes to an end very, very quickly. What was the feeling for you and your teammates after that when it was all wrapped up? Obviously a roller coaster of a night, and in some cases a roller coaster of a season, and a roller coaster of East football for the last number of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It was just I think we just looked at it as a bitter loss for the most part, but it stung at the end. Losing by 3, you can just think of if I did this differently, if we did this better, if we just converted here. But I'm happy with the season. I think everyone else is happy with the season. We had a great year. But yeah, I mean, we all do wish we could win that playoff game, go to play Medford. But looking back at it now, I think it was just a really hard fought game, and all in all, it was a successful season.
What was it like for you guys this year? So coming into a new conference, like Chad had just mentioned, that it's been quite a ride over the last 4 years. You guys have been in a lot of different situations, and this season was kind of the culminating effort of that, right? Being in the GNC, being playoff eligible, and playing teams that you've never played before consistently in new rivalries. So what kind of was the players? Like, we've talked to Coach Kramer, and he's kind of talked to us about it. What was the players' mindset, and what were your expectations for this season with so much unknown and being in a brand new situation?
Yeah, so I don't think we had really high expectations. We knew that going in. I don't think other people did of us just because we were in a new conference. Since I was a freshman, we've just been changing everything around from 8-man to just a JV team, and then we had a normal year my junior year in the Wisconsin Valley, and then we got switched around. We knew or I knew personally that my senior year was the time we got to like this was the season. So just looking at it from a player standpoint, everyone was super excited to go into the year. We knew we had high goals of, maybe winning conference and making playoffs and everything. So we didn't win conference. We got second, but still a really, really fun year.
What was the highlight? Because there were a lot of highlights, obviously, this season. I imagine that, making the playoffs, clinching the playoffs, having big games that had so much on the line. Was there a particular highlight for this season for yourself?
I would definitely say the Mosinee game. That Mosinee game was super fun. A really, really close game, intense game, and in the end, that's what clinched us to get second in the conference, since Mosinee finished third, and we won head-to-head. But that game was a lot of fun. Came down to a 2-point conversion in the end, and we won 21-20 or 2019.
I think that's kind of what we've talked about with some different guests and coaches in the year, with kind of the changes with Tomahawk being new and you guys being new to the conferences, and kind of you guys kind of have a foot in each conference right now, football in the Great Northern, and now when basketball starts, you'll be back in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. So you've been there your whole career, so you've established rivalries and guys you like competing against and schools you like competing against. Who do you kind of mentioned Mosinee, so maybe that's the answer. Like, who do you look at as being your rivalry in football now? What is the game that you guys most look forward to? I know when Treve Stoffel was here, we asked him, and he didn't hesitate for a second. He said Wausau. He said, I think he might have even mentioned you by name. They like competing against you in multiple sports. What's your take on that?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say Mosinee in football, but I also, really interesting, like the comparison with Merrill. We've played Merrill in basketball now because they're in the Valley, and then play them in football, and that's always a good game. So I would definitely say Mosinee, but then Merrill's a close second.
It's fun where both the games that you name, the teams that you named, both went right down to the wire.
Yeah.
And obviously that Merrill game, winning on a last-second field goal, was probably as exciting as well on homecoming. It was that kind of season. And again, it was really a very interesting campaign. We'll talk more about your high school sports here in just a moment, but let's talk a little bit about off the court. At East, what's your favorite class?
I would say probably Calculus 1.
Is there a reason why that's your favorite class?
I just like to be challenged in the classroom. I take academics very seriously, so I'm struggling a little bit, I'll say that. So just all new stuff in calculus, but got a great teacher, Miss Schuster. I don't know if she'll be watching this, but shout out her.
That's great. I know you're very busy with all of your sports and off-season stuff. What do you when you do have a minute away from the field or the court, what do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah, I love hanging out with my friends, spending time with family. I have two great dogs that I like to pay attention to a lot, but I would say hanging out with friends is probably the main thing I do.
Do you hope to continue both academically and athletically at the college level?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you made a decision yet, or is this something that you're still working on?
I'm still working on it. I'm getting close, but it's down to a couple schools.
Are you hoping to continue to play sports?
I am, yes.
Is it what sport are you looking to continue?
Well, actually, I'm opening my recruiting to both basketball and football, so I'll be, open to whoever's open to me. But yeah, I haven't decided yet.
As you, and we'll talk more about basketball in a minute as well, but as you head into basketball season, what is the mindset change for you? Like, how do you prepare for a football week I love football. I like all the sports, but I love football. I love the routine of it, right? It's you play on Friday night. This is what you recover on Saturday. Saturday or Sunday you start watching film. Monday you kind of review Friday and game plan for the next Friday, and then this is what you do every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday you play again, and it's just repeat that until the playoffs are done, and then you move to your next season. But basketball is different, right? You play multiple games a week, and that. So what do you have to change now from a mindset and physically as you head into that season versus football?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the most important part is to realize this is my last year of high school basketball. So, just a different chip on my shoulder. I think our goal this year or this winter is just to outwork everyone. Whether that be at practice or in games or even in the classroom, but we got a lot of talent coming back, and I'm super excited for this winter.
Again, we're talking to Jesse Napgezek from Wausau East High School, our student-athlete guest this week on the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. Are you able to carry momentum from football into basketball? Like, you had a really good finish to your season, obviously, had a big night in the playoff game, had a lot of success during the course of the football season. Are you able to carry it onto the basketball court in the winter?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. Just got to keep working, got to keep my nose down, stay disciplined. But, I think it'll be a little bit different than football. We have bigger goals, so just keep working.
Can I one more quick question here? The mentality, kind of building on what you were asking, Coach, about the pattern of football. You have the one game a week, and then with basketball, it does change a lot. How about your personal mentality? Is there a difference? Do you feel a difference, say, in the middle of a football game than you do in the middle of a basketball game? I just wonder, as somebody that plays at a high level, both in football and basketball, what's the mentality differences between football and basketball?
I think basketball, I would say, is more of a grind while you're in the game just because there's less breaks, I guess. So football, you go all in for 10 seconds or however long the snap is, and then you get a little break. But basketball, it's continuous going nonstop. You got to give it your all, all time, the whole time, I guess just the whole game.
Right.
So, yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed is, and have talked to him about, is that Coach Garrett is a member of the football staff as well. What does Coach Garrett bring to football, being your head basketball coach? And then how do you think that helps him coach you guys in basketball, having then just gotten done competing with you guys in football and being around you every single day? Do you think that's a benefit, and how do you think that helps out?
Yeah, for sure. I think he just keeps building his bonds with his players. He's actually in a similar situation with our head football coach, Coach Kramer, who's now coaching basketball. And it's interesting because, not to down these guys, but Coach Garrett is just not like a primary football guy, but he brings the coaching aspect just from being a head coach and all his experience. And then Coach Kramer's doing the same thing in basketball, just, his coaching experience and his discipline and his bond with the guys. I think it's great that they're both coaching both sports, so you can just keep building your bonds with them.
It's not all about X's and O's with coaches, is it? As well, over the years as well. Let's talk a little bit about, you said it, expectations are very high this year. You got a group that has built together since very young players, and you've gone basically through some growing pains and then through some major success. What are you looking at this year? What are the goals that you have maybe personally and for your team on the hardwood this year?
Yeah, so I'm just going to be completely honest. We have really, really high goals. A lot of people look at last year's winter as a success. I do too, but we have bigger goals than that. Just a regional championship. We want to go to state. We want to win conference. We got huge goals, and it's up to us, to make sure that we can put the work in to get there. But also personal goals. I don't know. I haven't really thought of that. I'm looking to go to state and win conference.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
Absolutely.
Coaches like hearing that.
Absolutely.
When you look at the conference, who do you expect to battle? Who are the teams that right now that you expect to be at or near the top in the Wisconsin Valley Conference?
Yeah, so Spash, they just got Jaden Awe back, so they're going to be tough. Marshfield, obviously, three-peated. I think that's going to be our most important games, Spash and Marshfield. And personally, in my varsity career, we haven't beat Marshfield, so that's a really important game to me. So be focusing on that the most, probably.
You had a real one of those classic games against Marshfield last year, didn't you?
Yep.
Didn't quite, but it was those experiences. Again, like you talked about the games like you had this season on the football field, and you think back to those kind of games as well. Not to put words in your mouth, but you've been very fortunate to play in a lot of very significant, emotional, high-intensity games, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Are you? Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, you mentioned some of those other players by names from those teams. Are those guys that you compete against in the summer or on some of the other teams that you play on? Like, do you have pretty strong relationships with those guys?
Yeah, I would say not much with Marshall or Spash. I know Grant Shadana a little bit, but West guys and some Everest guys, a lot of them I play AAU with. So those are really, really strong friendships I have, which makes those games a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, competing, I haven't really played many like conference players in AAU just off the top of my head. But, in summer league and stuff too. So, you just kind of see them in football and stuff too. So,
Are you involved at all in spring sports?
I might be doing track this year. I was doing track last year, so yeah.
What event were you involved with and maybe involved with again this year?
I was in high jump.
Interesting. Cool. Anything else, Coach, before we wrap it up?
No, just congratulations on a great season. I think you guys had some really nice wins. Home playoff game, I think, was a huge step for your program, and excited to see how things go this winter. Good luck.
Mm-hmm. Yep, thank you.
And we have one final question. We always ask our student-athlete guests. You're familiar with it, obviously, and you got a little bit more experience now than you did when you came in last winter. Based on your experiences, based on, again, the ups and the downs, based on the learning, based on everything you found out over these years being involved in the Wausau East athletic programs that you've been very much an important cog in, what piece of advice do you give somebody that may be a younger member of your teams that's just starting the journey that you are getting closer and closer to finishing off? Based on what you've learned, what piece of advice would you give to one of those younger teammates?
I mean, it sounds simple, but I just say just have fun. You got to love your teammates. You got to love what you're doing. I mean, sports obviously aren't fun if you don't love your team, you don't love the sport. So, I mean, I just say you got to enjoy those times, and you got to build relationships.
Jesse Napgezek, thank you very much. Congrats on the terrific football season. Best of luck as we get towards the winter sports. And again, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, that's Jesse Napgezek from Wausau East. We're going to take a quick timeout and come right back. Again, the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction, a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence from design and planning to the final construction. K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. More to come here on 98.9 WXCO.
First-round football playoffs include a shocking end for the state's winningest coach. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells. More high school sports news after this. You may have heard of Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells, one of the country's premier destinations for youth sports and events, but did you know that Just a Game does so much more? Just a Game also delivers end-to-end apparel, equipment, and event solutions. With their state-of-the-art screen printing and embroidery facility, they can help with branding for your team and business items, including uniforms, apparel, and more. Just a Game also offers digital services that include a cashless digital platform and event live streaming. Just a Game has also added a second brand new facility in Reedsburg. Find more information at justagame.com. Level 1 of the football playoffs is in the books, and once again it featured a few blowouts, several upsets, and this year the sudden end for the state's all-time winningest coach. Legendary St. Mary Springs head man Bob Hyland announced earlier this year that this, his 54th season, would be his last. It ended in shocking fashion as the second-seeded Ledgers fell 21-20 to a Winnebago Lutheran team they'd beaten 37-7 just a week earlier. Hyland finishes his career with 522 wins and 17 state titles. That was one of 22 upsets based on the seeding in 11-player football this year out of 112 opening matchups. One top seed went down as previously undefeated Eastern Suburban Conference champion Cambridge was shut out 27-0 by 8th-seeded Belleville. Elkhorn was another upset winner from last Friday night as the Elks took down second-seeded Monroe 17-14 for their first playoff win since 2004. There were a couple huge passing performances, including West Appear junior Patrick Greisen throwing for 534 yards in a 60-34 win over Oshkosh North, which included 8 touchdowns, tying for the third most in state history. Whitnall's Tanner Efforts threw for 573 yards, tying for 4th most in state history, but the Falcons fell to Reedsburg 62-48 as Reedsburg rolled up 611 rushing yards, believed to be in the top 5 all time. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net.
And welcome back, Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO with Coach Jason Foster. I'm Chad Holmes, and again, it's been wonderful. 11 weeks now, and a repeat coach. But I wanted him to come in because you didn't get a chance to talk to him in week 1.
Yeah, and what a kind of, like you said, nice bookends to the season, especially going from a Ophir season last year to I mean, people don't understand what a turnaround that is, and what a role. I don't know how many times he said it, quite a few, which is great, but what a role 12 seniors play in that. Like at the end of the day, coaches are coaches, and they make a difference and they have an impact, and there's good ones and there's better ones, and there's some who are a little less, but not really. They all put a ton of time in, regardless of what the outcomes are. At the end of the day, it really comes down to what the kids do on the field, but not just on Friday nights, in practice, in the weight room, in the off season, in the classroom. And I think it's great that he had a group of 12 seniors who kind of went through a 0-win season and was able to come back and be on a playoff team.
Let me ask you as a coach, because he mentioned, and I had forgot after watching the game, but we were talking off the air, and he mentioned a play in the first half and I was watching it live, I thought the Merrill kid made the grab for a touchdown, and I went back and you were able to slow it down, and I looked, and it was really, really close. I mean, obviously it was a play that could have gone either way. He thought it was a touchdown. I think it may have been, but again, it was that. I'm not going to throw the official under the bus, because it was one of those plays that was that close. But when you have a game like that, and then they have the situation like you talked about in the first time, and I thought he was being a little hard on himself, because I really don't think that throwing in that situation was a bad call. But I think, you can't sleep probably the whole weekend. You're going back over it. Can you maybe go into his head? Because it's interesting to see him, because I know that he was exceptionally proud, but at the same time, you can almost still see, I think, the hurt, because they had such a good game and a chance to win that one.
Well, I think first off, I would say it's going to be a lot longer than just last weekend before that play and that game comes out of his head. I've definitely been there. But I think one of the things that shows that what a good Coach Wadzinski is, and I think this is a trait not a trait. This is something that was told to me on one of my first days of ever stepping on a practice football field in a football program from a legendary coach. I won't say his name, but was a sign of a good coach is when things don't go well, it's the coach's responsibility, and when things do go well, it's because of the players, and we all know the truth lies somewhere in between there. But I think that's a sign of a great coach. I think as coaches, we all reflect back on that, and of course, the kids are the ones on the fields playing the game. But at the end of the day, we make a lot of decisions during a football game, and they're not all good. I mean, all you got to do is turn around and ask the parents sitting in the stands. They will remind you of the ones that weren't good, and it's kind of the heat of the battle. And I think that those are the things I think that lead to improved teams, and more importantly, improved programs, is that reflection piece, right? Like, I made this decision this year. We talk about 4 or 5 plays in a close game, whether it's penalties, turnovers. They missed 2 field goals in that game and lost by 5 points. Obviously, that is not a shot on their kicker, because
one was a terrible snap.
Right,
it was not
field
his
goal. Well, that's the whole thing, right? A field goal in a high school football game is a crapshoot at best. So you certainly don't put that on that unit or whatever. But at the end of the day, the goal then becomes to have as few of those as possible. And I love what he said. Their game plan going in was we had to play mistake-free football, and we had to find a couple turnovers, and they did exactly that. And it still didn't come out completely in their favor. So I think it's tough, but that's being a coach right now. There aren't many easy parts about it, and the coaches who do it, and do it for extended periods of time, do it because they love football, but way more importantly, they love the kids that they coach. And you could definitely tell that in talking to Coach Wadzinski, that he has some really strong relationships with those kids. And I feel really bad. I know he's got a young family as well. I feel horrible for them because they just finished this time frame. I'm kidding when I say I feel horrible. But they just finished this time when he has spent hours upon hours of this, and to come that close, there's not going to be much of a break in there for Coach Wadzinski. There will be. He'll spend more time with his family, but he will be watching a lot of film this offseason. He will be thinking about how to get more kids in the weight room, and what are those mental and team-building things you can do in the offseason. Because football is the one. It's true of all sports. I'm obviously a little biased, but football is the sport that in this day and age is a 12-month-a-year job. And it ebbs and flows how much time you put at different times of the year, but there really is not a time where you're not doing something.
And one final note about that discussion, when you talk about decisions, and the one thing I've learned playing poker, you can't be results-oriented. You have to just make the best decision and feel like, hey, in the moment, I made the best decision possible. And I think if you always look, if you second guess yourself all the time, then all of a sudden you may get frozen a little bit. And I think that again, I just watching that game again, it was a very exciting game. I tell you, it really was. It was a great 13-8 game. I thought what him and his coaches did. I thought what his team did. I think there's no reason for any second guessing. Just a couple of plays went the wrong way, and that's the way it is in playoff football, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, the buzzwords in leadership right now, whether it's athletics and coaching or business or whatever, the buzzwords are whether you're a transactional leader or you're a transformational leader. And those transaction leaders think they can fix everything through X's and O's and accountability and all that. At the end of the day, the transformational leadership piece is what he talked about, being able to go in at halftime and being able to get those kids to understand, guys, we're down 7-0 on the road against Onalaska. Yeah. They're the ones who have the pressure in their locker room right now. And then more importantly, after the game, being able to put Humpty back together again and get these kids to understand what they have accomplished over the course of 4 years or 2, or depending on what grade they're in. And to, I mean, one of the things we want from our coaches is for their players to be able to look back over their shoulders at the end of that final season of whatever sport it is and say, I'm a better young man or better young woman today than I was when I started my journey with you. And it sounds like those kids sure can.
And I think the same thing. I think Jesse Napgezek sounded like he was, tough loss, but at the same time, great journey. And that's it. I mean, the journey and ultimately laying a foundation for everything that comes afterwards.
And to piggyback a little bit on a situation, and this is across the board for all different teams and conferences and divisions and all that, this is a really hard time of year, because this is, as the head football coach, and in the winter it'll be basketball and hockey and that, but at this point in time, you are competing what should be the most important games to win or go home, and there for sure are going to be kids on your team who are thinking, yep, basketball starts and basketball's my no, and that is not does not sound at all like that was Jesse's thing, but that is another thing that you're kind of dealing with and I think that's the next step in those programs with the Uber tradition, right? At Edgar, I can go all the way to week 14 playing a state championship game, and then this is how we do basketball in Edgar after you play in week 14. But in some of these other programs that you haven't made those runs and those kids start having 1 foot on the dock and 1 foot in the boat, that's just another challenge.
That sounded a little bit like what Coach Wadzinski was talking about going into that Rhinelander game, that, okay, we win it. Well, we lost 60-6. I mean, there are so many different angles that I never even considered that until he said it. Like, I guess that makes sense. There's so many things that can go into a young person's mind that the coach has to worry about and to try to get them in that right space to compete. And obviously, Coach Wadzinski was able to do that both against Rhinelander and then against Onalaska as well. But let's continue talking about some of the recaps from last week. We're up to Division 4, and this year, I think this is the first year we've talked about Division 4 in all the years I've been doing this show, because normally there would not be a team from our area that's in Division 4, and unfortunately there won't be a team in our area in Division 4 next week, because Mosinee fell at home to Ellsworth in a tight game, 28-21. Ellsworth 7-3. Mosinee finishes 6-4. Terrific season for Treve Stoffel. He was 14 of 26 Friday, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns added, 17 rushes for 65 yards, and 8 tackles on defense. Jarek Seeger had 5 catches for 93 yards and both touchdown catches for Mosinee. Mosinee led twice, 7-0, 14-7, then trailed 21-14, tied it early in the fourth, but then Ellsworth scores the winning touchdown with 6:33 left on a 33-yard scoring pass. A lot of these types of games for Mosinee this year. I mean, they had a lot of success, and I think, again, they had a significant injury in addition to a lot of talent lost. It was not easy, but boy, they did battle, I thought, the entire season.
They did, and this was this was a tough year for them, right? I mean, not only did they suffer a bunch of injuries in season, but they graduated some really talented players. So there was a lot of, I think, question marks surrounding this team and who they were going to be and what was their identity this year. And I think they played good football, and I think that they competed and probably maybe won some games they maybe shouldn't have, and probably look back at a couple and lost one or two they think they probably should have had in retrospect. But at the end of the year, they competed right down to the very end. Treve Stoffel, obviously an outstanding football player, and they're probably very excited to know that he's only a junior.
That's always you know it, when you have a quarterback that comes back, that is such a big advantage in high school football, and he had so much on his shoulders this season. I mean, sometimes a quarterback can be sort of a place setter, in some cases you're asked to do a lot, and he was asked to do a lot this season.
When you talk with coaches this time of year too, there's that certain guilt factor. You don't want to say goodbye to the seniors too early because they've given you so much or whatever, but you do immediately start looking at next year's depth chart and who's going to fill in for this. So one of the great feelings is having a really talented sophomores and juniors, so you're automatically going to be better at those positions next year because all those kids are going to do is get better.
Division 5, Stratford 10-0. They beat Horicon Hustisford 48-14. Jack Tubbs does what Jack Tubbs does. He hits on a very high percentage of his passes, 13 of 15, 323 yards. It's always nice when you're averaging more than 20 yards per completion. That's a nice way to go. He had 3 touchdowns. Alec Chappell had 4 catches, 136 yards and a touchdown. Caleb Wrench had 3 catches, 121 yards and a touchdown. Can we officially say that Stratford has gone from a run team to a pass team?
I would say that Horicon Hustisford could certainly say that if you asked them. I think when you have an absolute star player like they do in Tubbs, and I think I look at it a little bit like DC Everest as well, right? Like when they need to, they can throw the football. We talk about this all the time, right? You can't win in the playoffs if you're one-dimensional, and I think we've seen a lot of balance out of some teams throughout the season. I think the one thing that Stratford has proven that if they need to be able to throw the ball all night long and make big plays, they can do that. And if they need to run the ball all night long to possess it and keep control of that clock, they can do it. And if they need a balance, Tubbs has definitely shown he can do both as well. So they've got to be feeling really good. Obviously, there's some question marks for them being in Division 5 this year, and they'll be facing some different teams down the road here. But certainly a great start to their playoff run.
They won't be facing different teams this week, though. They will be facing a very familiar opponent this week, Amherst, who is now 8-2. They beat Oostburg 35-12. Don't have much info on this one. I know they returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. That's always a good way to start, especially when you're trying to snap a 2-game losing streak. But Amherst moves on. They will take on Stratford. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Wittenberg-Burnhamwood in a 4-5 game. They dominated Barron 48-0. And Bryson Schmidt, 14 rushes, 141 yards. Had a touchdown, also 5 of 9 passing, 97 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. I said earlier when we talked about Medford, you can almost say that could put on a repeat of what we've been talking about. But Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, they just keep building this season. They keep getting better. And again, you just love, if you're a fan of that Wittenberg-Burnhamwood team or a coach on that staff, they just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, and when we talk about computer matchups and this, and I think from a local viewer type standpoint, we don't know anything about these teams that they matched up against, but obviously Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Barron was a very interesting 4-5 matchup, and I think they're definitely peaking at the right time, and we've kind of watched them ascend throughout the course of the season. Big win against Amherst at the end there, which apparently has boosted them moving forward.
And also Colby saw their season come to an end. It's interesting to see a playoff team finish 3-7, but they were able to get into the postseason, and they ran into a very good program. Northwestern 40-6 Colby season ends. And Colby, for so many years recently, they've been such a good running team. They had more difficulty running the football this year. Just 35 yards rushing on 26 attempts, 107 yards of total offense. And again, in terms of, a little bit of the research I've been doing, they've had a couple of good runners. But the thing is, runners can't do it by themselves. Right. And I think that there's ebbs and flows with programs, too. They can be a really good program, but sometimes you lose a lot. Colby, I think, just lost a lot, especially up front from a very good team last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've kind of wondered all year long who they are. And I think we even did it, right? Like we expected them to be last year's Colby or their traditional Colby. And I think this kind of puts the final chapter of that book together, that this year's team was down.
Division 6, Waiawega Fremont, and again, that's a program that's got better and better in recent years. They had struggled for a long time. They got back to the playoffs last year. They got back this year. Could have maybe had a better seed except for the miracle loss against Amherst. And that's, again, when you look back at moments or plays, whether a game or a season, you try to avoid Coleman early because that is such a good football team and program. And Waiawega had to go to Coleman, and Coleman does what Coleman does. They ran the ball, and they ran the ball, and they ran the ball, and they scored a lot of touchdowns, winning 63-29 to stay undefeated. Waiawega Fremont finishes 5-5. The quarterback Cameron Zilke, he's had a really good season. Multi-purpose quarterback, 19 of 31, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, 11 rushes, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. But Coleman, 487 yards on 52 attempts. When all is said and done in D6, I'm sure they're very happy that Stratford's not in there because they are a team that could take advantage of something like that.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to watch them moving forward. And this, I mean, games like this speak a little bit to, and obviously the high seed, low seed thing, and this is going to continue to happen. But when people out there talk about the all-in playoffs thing, well, this was a team that earned its way into the playoffs with 5 wins overall.
In a good conference.
In a really good conference. And this, I mean, 500 yards rushing the football in the level 1 playoff game. Holy cow.
And speaking of running football teams, up next, you talk about running. There's going to be a lot of running when Coleman takes on Abbotsford. And Abbotsford, good for Abbotsford because last season they lost in level 1 in a very disappointing home loss a year ago. This year they defeated Nakusa 42-28 to improve to 8-2. Irvin Aguilera 5 of 8, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Added 13 rushes, 82 yards and a touchdown. Chase Boulder 13 rushes, 120 yards and a score. Andrew Broadhagen 2 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. 495 yards of total offense for Abbotsford. Obviously, I think for Abbotsford they're going to go in as an underdog. But if there's anybody that can take some time off the clock, it's Abbotsford. They can run the football on a good night.
Yeah, we talk all the time about having to be able to throw the football, but I think the teams that only throw the football struggle even more in these tough matchups for the reason you just said, that they can't possess the football. The clock's always stopping. Mm-hmm. You're giving the ball back to a team that can really move it without taking any time off the clock. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy for Abbotsford. It's great talking with their coaches here, learning a little bit more about their program and the players on their team. So exciting, good win for them. Obviously, a tough matchup next week against Coleman, but they should go in with some confidence.
Another victory for the CWC. Auburndale beat Westfield 35-0. Auburndale 9-1. Blake Robb 15 of 21. 153 yards, 3 touchdowns, added 6 carries, 58 yards. Colton Weiler, 19 rushes, 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the defense, obviously good, tossing the shutout, allowing just 129 yards of total offense. So Auburndale, again, also I think they got to like it because they got Edgar below them in Division 7 and they got Stratford above them. So maybe, again, I think Division 6 opens up just a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that them and Coleman are probably potentially on a collision course. But again, too, nice to see another CWC school doing well. A school with a lot of tradition of winning, having a really nice win in round 1.
Division 7, Edgar did the job, 36-0 over Pittsfield to improve to 9-1. Again, Edgar does things with returns. Sometimes it's a punt return, sometimes it's a kickoff return. In this case, an interception return. It was 15-0 in the second quarter, and obviously Pittsfield must have been driving. A 102-yard return of an interception by Gavin Maurer, and all of a sudden, instead of a 1-score game, it's a 3-score game, and that's very difficult against the Edgar Wildcats. Tucker Street had 125 yards and 3 touchdowns passing. Edgar did not rush it very well. Only 85 yards as a team, 4 yards per carry. Dalton Dar had a nice night for Pittsfield, 24 rushes, 82 yards. But Edgar did the job. But I got to think that Pittsfield, they showed well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think obviously they know all too well what a tough matchup this one was going to be. I think to some extent too, I would imagine that Coach Sins goes into games like this with common foes and isn't looking to do what maybe Coleman. Weren't going to put up 60 yards against these guys, but at the same time, he also wasn't going to give up any points either. So I think this is Pittsville can kind of hold their head high as they go into the offseason. They probably 3-7. They probably would have liked to find a couple more wins during the season, and that's kind of what they'll work on as they move into the offseason.
Hilbert, the number 7 seed, defeated number 2 Iola Scandinavia. Upset 28-14. Hilbert ran the ball, 277 yards on 58 rushes. For Iola, again, a little bit of a surprise. I think even more so that they were only able to put up 14 points. When they've been on, they've been able to put up some big numbers during the course of the season.
Yeah, I think this is obviously Iola Scandinavia is a good football team. They also have a strong tradition, but Hilbert is a good football program. They come from that old Olympia conference in Chilton, Mishicot, Hilbert. When I was up at Northland Pines, we kind of did some non-conference round robin with them over the course of some years, and they play good football down there, have good tradition, and this was not going to be an easy football game, and I think the score showed that.
8-player game that was here on WXCO. Newman ended a really, really good season, falling to McDonald 52-8. I'm going to make a little comment here because we like to call out good things, and I'm going to call out something that was not good in that game. I was driving home from our game last week, and we had the tape delay broadcast, and it was a running clock in the fourth quarter, and the starting quarterback was in, the starting receiver was in. They were rushing to add another touchdown. It was bad sportsmanship. So boo to McDonald Central. I hope they learned something because I think, again, trying to figure it out, they lost by a big margin 2 years ago to Newman in the playoffs, but Newman didn't score any points in the second half. I mean, they scored a lot of points in the first half, but they didn't score any in the second half. So I just, listening to the broadcast and then researching it was not good. And I understand maybe their feelings were hurt 2 years ago, but it wasn't a case where Newman was keeping their starters in right to the end or scoring in the second half at all. I just think that, again, it's my small voice out there listening to it, and just listening to it, I could see there's something wrong here. It's a running clock in the fourth quarter. You're starting QB and you're starting receiver, and you're throwing the football down the field and rushing to the line of scrimmage to score in the last seconds of the game. I didn't like it.
Well, and I think a couple things that you can point out with that too, kind of to add to it is one, it's not great sportsmanship. At that point, you're not improving anybody's all-conference, all-region, or all-state numbers because those things should already be done. And if they weren't, you don't count the playoff stats really anyway.
Right.
And then I think the second thing on this is you're playing a team in Newman Catholic, and maybe they know, maybe they don't know. I assume they do because it's a small community in that 8-player and the tradition of those programs. You're playing a team that season was wrought with horrific, maybe that's too strong. It's Halloween, so I'll use it. But really tough injuries that ended seasons, that ended, and I think this is a situation where that would be my bigger thing is you got to have 3 more levels to make a state championship, and they're a team who's going to compete potentially for that state championship. So why would you risk injury to anybody? And that's how the stupid injuries come. So not that you put your other guys in there so they get injured, but it makes no sense to risk injury at that stage of a game.
And you don't make any friends that way.
Nope. I mean, and we talked earlier. There's good coaches. There's better coaches, and I have no idea who their coach is, so I am not taking a shot at their coach. But this is certainly a way, like you said, to not make friends.
Micklig's had plenty of chances to run it up over the last few years, and he does not do it. And again, you can call me a homer, you can call me whatever you want. I've seen enough of their games that they do the things the right way, and in this case, that was not the right thing to do. And I thought I would use my megaphone a little bit to bring it up.
And we've talked with Coach Wadzinski tonight. We've talked about this throughout the course of the show, and this season it's about kids, right?
Yes, it is.
And you want to find a way after that final buzzer, whether it's in week 9 or whenever your playoff run ends, for those kids to walk off the field with some pride and dignity. Right. And it sounds like maybe they stole that opportunity for those kids.
Let's talk about this week. Obviously, you're going to feel it's going to be real football weather. I mean, even last week it was cooler, but it was still a beautiful night when we were down at Waunakee to watch that game. But it looks like now with some of this wet stuff coming through, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to see any wet stuff on Friday night, but it's going to be much cooler, and it's going to be a factor, I think, in some of these games. Let's start with Division I, and let's talk about Everest and Madison Memorial. Boy, That is a good offense, and like you've talked about, you've been a defensive coach. You've tried to stop these teams when you're able to throw it, when you're able to run it, when you have a great quarterback, when you have a great running back, you have great receivers. Boy, I mean, they got a plethora of weapons, Everest, right?
Yeah, one of the things that makes coaching defense a lot easier is when coaches don't know how to utilize those weapons that they have on offense, or they become one-dimensional. And that is the one thing that the coach has done a really nice job of this year is being consistent and being able to run the ball, throw the ball, and important, run the ball with your quarterback and use your weapons, wide receivers, tight ends. Blake Bankston, you look at his numbers last week, 4 catches. I mean, that's not a ton of catches, even though he had over 100 yards or close to 100 yards and a touchdown. But those 4 catches are really big. I mean, you have to defend that all the time. Even though he only caught 4, you have to defend it all the time.
And they use their tight end so well as well. I mean, it's like
and those are 2 weapons. Like if you're going to throw jump balls to a number 1 receiver all night, I can find a way to shut that down or try to and defend it. But if you can throw it to your running back, your tight end, and you also have wide receivers and an outstanding running back, and the quarterback can also run the ball, that's a lot harder to defend.
And I'm curious to see. I mean, I actually do think that these are the 2 best teams in this bracket right now. Yeah. And again, it's one of those cases where, and I'm also curious to see if Waunakee bounces back, because we talked about earlier. West did a lot of nice things, really slowed them down. I'm curious to see if they're able to be a little bit better coming up this week.
I'm probably beating a dead horse here, but it's exciting to me to be playing but having our teams playing Madison, Memorial, and Waunakee, and not those Fox Valley teams, just to kind of see how football in a different part of the state is played.
And it would, again, I do sense there's an opportunity for this Everest team to make a little noise for the Valley, and it has not happened in quite a while.
Absolutely. So, yeah, good luck. Good luck to the Evergreens this week.
Nobody left for us in Division 2 to talk about. We'll talk maybe generally about what everything else if we have a few moments, but let's go right to Division 3. You have Medford taking on Fox Valley Lutheran. I got to think that Medford has a good chance in this football game, because Fox Valley Lutheran obviously was able to score a lot of points, but they gave up a lot of points. Obviously, Medford does it a little differently, but boy, Fox Valley Lutheran's going to have to find a way to slow down that Edgar run game. And Medford, should I say Edgar? Medford run game. But Medford has shown a little bit of an ability to pass it. I'm curious if they get into a spot where they have to pass it, whether they'll have that in their arsenal.
Right. And I think a big part of it, too, one of the things that stands out about the Wausau East game, obviously Wausau East showed a lot of resolve, but Fox Valley Lutheran got out to a fast start, up 23-0. And Medford, unlike Wausau East, is not built to come back to from a 23-0 deficit. So I think possessing the ball, keeping this game close, or getting out to a lead for Medford, I think is going to play a big role in their success.
And I think for all road teams, I think even last week when West got up by 7 early, it's like, wow. I think that really goes a long way in the playoffs, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's momentum, it's turnovers, it's special teams, all right? I mean, how many of these did we talk about? The 102-yard pick six and the kickoff return for Amherst, the opening kickoff return for a touchdown. What a huge momentum bump things like that are. So plays a huge role. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, this should be a good matchup for Medford.
Nobody in Division 4 left after Mosinee was eliminated. So Division 5, you got Wittenberg, Burnhamwood, and number 1 seed St. Croix Falls. And again, obviously, it's a very difficult trip for Wittenberg, Burnhamwood against a very good football team and program. But boy, you have to feel like Wittenberg, Burnhamwood, the way they've been playing, they're going to go out there and give themselves a chance.
Yeah, I think so. I think that St. Croix Falls, St. Croix Central, those teams over there have had some regular season success, but I don't think they have a ton of playoffs history and playoff success. So I think Wittenberg might even have a better pedigree when you look at state championships and deep playoff runs than St. Croix Falls. So I think Wittenberg Burnhamwood, the way they've been playing, should feel good about that trip.
We don't talk much about the Clover Belt. Stanley Boyd's always been a really good program. They're still in that bracket. The winner of the Wittenberg game against St. Croix Falls will take on either Stanley Boyd or Northwestern. Those are 2 programs that have done a lot of good things, haven't they?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Northwestern last week, leading into that, and I think those are good teams, and I think that's kind of an open kind of one of those teams has the potential to make a little deeper run than they have recently.
Other side of the bracket, Stratford and Amherst. And Amherst battled for 3 quarters, but boy, that's still a tough matchup for Amherst. Stratford has so many ways to beat you right now.
Right, and I whatever, they're going to prove me wrong. Maybe I'm doing a favor by saying this, but it just feels like Amherst doesn't have that championship pedigree this year. Like they haven't won any of those really big games that they've been in, including Wittenberg, right? So I think, I mean, obviously this would be a huge win for them and get them pumped up. But I don't know, something is going to happen for me to not choose Stratford right now.
It's actually being played in Marshfield, which is an interesting choice.
I was talking to Marshfield's athletic director. So 2 years ago, Stratford's field was under construction or whatever they're doing, so they played their entire season at Marshfield. Last year they played level 1, 2, and 3. No, that would have been neutral.
Well, they played they played Auburndale on the road, remember?
So they played the next 2 levels at Marshfield, and then this year they're back at Marshfield again. So I was joking with their athletic director today, saying that they're the Stratford's rabbit's foot to with their back-to-back state championships and get another one.
Division 6, a couple of teams from Central Wisconsin, Abbotsford at number 1 Coleman, and Auburndale at Bonduelle. I mean, those are 2 fun matchups, aren't they?
Yeah, and I mean, Coleman and Bonduelle have been kind of ruling that part of the state in football and wrestling for a long time. They play a tough brand of football over there, so those are tough matchups. If we take either one of those games, those will be great wins.
I think that Auburndale Bonduelle game will be a very entertaining game.
Was it Wittenberg who played Bonduelle?
Yep, back
early?
in week 1. Yep, they lost by 9. And then Division 7, you got Edgar hosting Shiocton, who won on the road against Roncalli last week. That is it for D7. So Edgar and Shiocton.
Yeah. So I think too that they are rolling. I think this is the time of year when they buckle down and care absolutely nothing about statistics, and they care a lot about, this is a statistic. Their defense becomes really important for them at this point, is keeping zeros on the board, and because they know they're likely to see some 12-6 type games in here. So obviously each week gets tougher at this point for Edgar, but they've got to be feeling really good about where they're at as well.
And I think in the 8 player, the big matchup is Owen Withy and McDonald. Those are 2 teams, the only 2 teams I think this season have been ranked number 1 in the entertainment purposes only rankings, but I think that's going to be a massive matchup. Owen Withy beat them earlier in the regular season, and that could be kind of a preview of who ultimately gets all the way in 8 players.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.